We're going to look at how to put the equation of a conic in polar form into rectangular form. So first of all, you should think about what we're aiming for. When we see the denominator is a limacon with a loop where a is less than b, then we should get a hyperbola. So when we're done, this equation should look like the equation of a hyperbola. When there are variables in the denominator, the first thing that I typically want to do in algebra is to multiply both sides by the denominators to get rid of the variables in the denominator and get rid of the fraction form. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4 plus 6 cosine of theta. Notice then that on the right-hand side of the equation, the denominators divide out, leaving me with just 3. Whereas on the numerator, the right side of the equation, I can distribute the r to both of these terms. So now I have 4 times r plus 6r cosine theta equals 3. Notice I put the r next to the cosine theta because I know now I can replace r cosine theta with x. Now over here I just have an r, I don't have an r squared, so I'm going to go ahead and substitute the square root of x squared plus y squared for r, and just x for r cosine theta. Now when I have a radical, the next thing I want to do is get rid of the radical, and I need to do that by squaring the square root. But before I square the square root, I want to isolate it. So I want to get the square root by itself on one side of the equation and everything else on the other side. Now I could also put 4 on the other side by dividing both sides by 4, but I'd prefer not to reintroduce a fraction, so I'm not going to do that. Now I'm going to square both sides of the equation. Notice when I square both sides of the equation, I'm squaring the 4 as well as the square root. So this gives me 16 times the quantity x squared plus y squared, because when you square square root, you just get what's inside. Now I'm going to distribute the 16 and multiply out the binomial here. So this gives me 16x squared plus 16y squared. This is going to be 3 squared minus 2 times 3 times 6x. 3 times 6x is negative 18x, so double that would be negative 36x. Because remember, this is 3 minus 6x times 3 minus 6x. And then this would give me 36x squared. And the very last step then is to put this in general form. Since this is a conic, I'm going to put it in a form where I have first all the x squared terms, then the y squared terms, then the x, then the constant equal to 0. So subtracting 36x squared from both sides gives me negative 20x squared plus 16y squared. Add 36x to both sides, and then I have plus 36. Subtract 9 from both sides, minus 9 equals 0. Since I have two squared terms, one of which is negative and one of which is positive, I know that this is the equation of a hyperbola. So I have been successful. Now for the last step, I'm going to double check that when I put the equation into rectangular form, I get the same graph as I do in polar form. Notice I typed it in exactly as written. Desmos allows me to do that. Click on the circle. I did it. It's exactly the same.